Valentine's Day, go grab yourself a wheel, especially if you're single. Go grab yourself a pizza, like we used to do in Swift Current, Keener, on Valentine's Day. Grab a Mickey and
Do
a
they still do
pie.
those? Do they do those heart-shaped pizzas still? I don't remember when you're solo like that.
Western doesn't. They go old school. Okay, let's make all of our listeners and us smarter here. What are we looking at? Is this going to happen? Is Penticton going to be in the Western Hockey League?
All intents and purposes, I think that's a yes, and that'll be the 23rd franchise in the WHL, and that puts 6 teams in the BC division, 6 in the US, and we'll do like a 12-11 format by all accounts here. It just has to be, I think the ink has to dry, and we're just sort of waiting an announcement at some point. I don't know if the BCHL wants to get in front of this or how it'll shake down, but obviously there's some turmoil and there's a little bit of finger pointing and things, I would bet, in the BCHL right now.
Was this poorly kept secret?
I mean, at this day and age, it's tough to keep anything secret. Now, there was a ton of things happening behind the scenes for a while. And, there were, people in the league and around the league and general managers and owners and governors all knowing this was coming down the pipe. They all vote on it. So it was slowly coming out, but not to the point maybe it has come out now where, dollar figures are being talked about, expansion scenarios with an expansion draft, things like that. At some point here, I'm assuming it'll become official, and then we'll wait and see with the next domino, if there's another domino, will fall following this.
So, John, the first thing I thought of when I heard this was, well, what's the population of Penticton, which puts it in that small market. It's PA, it's Moose Jaw size. So what's driving this move? Like, were the people of Penticton riding in the street saying we demand a WHL franchise?
I don't think you would. I mean, they have been the most successful BCHL franchise by a mile. They have a monopoly almost on championships and being in the league final. I think what's driving this is the NCAA eligibility changes, like that whole junior A structure where players were going that route to protect their eligibility is no longer something you have to do. The best players, whether you're college bound or professional hockey bound or what have you, are all going to be in major junior hockey. So I think this was probably Penticton saying, this is probably our best path moving forward. We've lost sort of our recruiting edge. And if we want the top players, we want to say this player was drafted from the Penticton Vs or this is an alumni. That was their only route. And they were a franchise that would have been one of the big franchises, pushing to get outside of the Hockey Canada umbrella and trying to go rogue, for lack of a better term, with their Super League. And all of a sudden, they're one of the first teams out here by the sounds of things. We'll see what the ownership group does look like when it's announced.
Talk about the money that would have to exchange hands, because there's like the territorial rights, right? With Kelowna close by.
Yeah, so that's a negotiated rate. And, if you have a WHL team and it's, I don't know the exact kilometer catchment, but Penticton is within Kelowna's territorial exemption. So any sort of a move from expansion franchise would have to be signed off by Kelowna, similar to if Chilliwack re-enters the league, then the Vancouver Giants would have a territorial exemption on that. So they've negotiated a figure. I mean, there's words that it is a seven-figure number, low seven-figure number. And then when you get through that hurdle, then you start talking about the expansion fee that would be, levied from the WHL just to play with the big boys in this league.
What is that fee? An expansion fee? Do we know?
Well, I mean, I've heard some numbers that are pretty wild, but we're talking potentially $15 million.
Yeah,
is what we're hearing, and this is all the ownership and all these teams have a stake in this, because for a lot of this sets the bar for what the franchise values are across the league. So this is heavily negotiated, and there's a lot of people in play here.
Doesn't this, and I know there's people, you see the Swift Current Bronco logo behind me, a city that you worked in, you called games, the Prince Albert's, the smaller markets. This is going to benefit them, won't it? Because won't they get a share of this windfall?
Usually that's how it works. Like the expansion fee is divvied up around the WHL, and I've been told that would be the same scenario. So, I don't know what the league share would be. I don't know what the team share would be, but they'd figure out some sort of percentage. But for these small market teams like Prince Albert, like Swift Current, Moose Jaw, some of these community-owned teams, like it's some sort of a windfall. It really is, and that's what they've signed up for. They're part of the WHL brand. I think it would be best if these teams reinvest that money back into the organization to make sure that their standards are being upheld and that they can, play in what's a changing landscape here in the WHL as far as it comes to some of these top markets now entering the league.
Do you think it's realistic that they play next year?
Damn it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I think that's the plan, and they have to figure a way out. Remember, we turned Wenatchee over in seemingly overnight out of Winnipeg. That was after when Memorial Cup that year was in Kamloops. There was no talk of Wenatchee. I wouldn't even know how to pronounce Wenatchee, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, the franchise was relocated from Winnipeg. So they have to figure this out. I would assume if this can get done, that Penticton will have a stake in the WHL prospects draft. They'll have their draft picks. Where they pick, we'll figure that out. But this is going to be full on, expansion rules here.
Sorry, Harry. I know you might ask that, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around this today. I was talking to a guy this morning, and I'm like, okay, they haven't had scouts out there watching the kids. Starting tonight in Balgony, it's the top 80 Sask first, where all the GMs are scouts and everything. They're going to be so far behind the 8 ball. And then we talked about it here. It's okay, where do they fall in the prospects draft? You ain't getting the first 2 picks somehow, or it'll be Anacree. Things, it's just to spin it that quick. Where's the money from in Penticton?
The money, the ownership money?
Yeah, their junior A team, which we know. I think the Cylinders played there. There's been kids from here that have gone there. Brown went there, came back to Moose Jaw. Do they have a deep pockets on an ownership?
Yeah, they do. Their ownership, their main owner used to be in charge of that Triathlon Canada and sold that off and made a lot of money on that. But that said, there's talk, and I don't know the players involved here, but there's talk of bringing on some NHL alumni that have ties to Penticton or ties to junior hockey, and they would probably help, be a stake in that ownership group. But Penticton's fine, guys. Don't feel bad for Penticton. This isn't a poor franchise. I mean, they have a beautiful building, the South Okanagan Event Center. They're anything but. I mean, they've made a lot of money over the years as the BCHL flagship. Hosting playoff games and league finals, they're fine. But especially when you factor in maybe some NHL backing, they'll be well equipped, I would think.
Who's the loser in this? It's the same thing, same question I asked when the NCAA rule changed. There's a winner and loser and everything. So who loses in this deal?
That's clear. It's clear. It's the BCHL. This would be like the Saskatchewan Roughriders saying, now we're going to the NFL, so we're out. Maybe not on that level, but you know what I mean? It's a major coup, but I don't think anyone anticipated this a couple of years ago that we would see, the NCAA eligibility rules change. Now, I think major junior hockey probably gets younger, but I think some of those topper end players at 19 or 20 might be headed off to school. So it's win some, lose some, I think, for the WHL, but there's no doubt that when the BCHL loses their top franchise, it'll raise some eyebrows, especially when they made a pretty significant, bold move to leave Hockey Canada, and no love lost there, especially with the other junior leagues across Canada either, guys. So we'll see how it plays out here, and maybe there's talk that Chilliwack could be next for 26-27.
What about legal avenues? Could they block it from a litigious standpoint?
Well, I haven't been to a law class since grade 12, so I don't know if I can help you out on that front. Yeah. But I will say, I'm sure there would be some sort of challenges to it. But I think everyone sort of saw this coming to an extent when you look at what's the best path forward. And as soon as those rules change with NCAA, it completely flipped the landscape of what we know junior hockey to be. And it'll continue to make big changes, I think. So
last question. When you think about maybe the possibility of a franchise in Chilliwack, would that be a relocation, do you think, or would that be another expansion team down the road?
Yeah, they'd have to sort that out. That's a great question. I don't. You get to 24 teams if you add Chilliwack as an expansion. I think what this does is ups the bar and makes sure teams are abiding to the WHL standard that are currently in the league, and it maybe puts them on notice to say, hey, you have to bring your A game. You have to have the player experience top notch. But I think with this player pool supposedly opening up, I think the WHL feels they could field 24 teams and be all right at that point. I don't see we go beyond 24. I think we're getting a little out of hand there maybe, but it's something to watch for sure, guys.
And I know people out there that remember you from Swift Current and the Eagle 94.1, where we both were. I would have to ask, favorite Chilliwack song, is it My Girl, or is it What You're Gonna Do When I'm Gone?
That's not bad. I was thinking of the CanCon that we used to play back then here. Oh man, I think it's What You Gonna Do When I'm Gone. I think that the chorus, the hook on that is great. Here's great. And before we sign off here, thanks for the shout out to the Lanigan Pirates. They're in a second round here now. Big matchup with Foam Lake. They're a huge underdog, and I appreciate the plugs. You guys keep me relevant somehow in that province, so I appreciate it.
That's right. They got to do a Jon Keen night next year in Lanigan. Are you're calling a game tonight on Valentine's Day?
Yeah, we got our friends from Kelowna in here, so it's a nice matchup with the Rockets on Valentine's Day.
You and Regan can have a nice romantic piece of pizza or whatever. Thanks so much, John. Appreciate it. You made us smarter on this WHL possible transaction, and have a good call tonight, buddy.
Okay, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. See ya.